I was just looking at the calendar invite for some strange reason. Oh. Seems like I had a login. Yeah, I want to be. I want to listen. I just want to listen, honestly. But seriously, if it is a daily thing, why are like I was on call, John was on call, and we did not see. Core nouns. I don't know because I speak out. Should probably keep my mouth shut.
Hi, welcome. So I think today's focus is primarily going to be on the MLOps roadmap. I believe Animesh is busy on another project at the moment, so quick update on this morning's Asia Pacific session. We've been looking at various areas of the roadmap document over the course of the development on technology requirements, but the discussion today was primarily around the legal compliance and ethical aspects involved with machine learning projects. And that raised some quite interesting discussion about the need for MLOps tooling to actually have some level of understanding of some of the challenges in that space and actually enable governance processes which go quite a lot further than those we're typically used to finding in conventional CI/CD environments. In terms of the process of the document itself, we're gradually filling things out now. The challenges table is relatively well populated, and we're looking now at the technology requirements section. So the latest updates in this document are relating to the privacy implications, some of the challenges that we face around managing data sources and data permissions in real world scenarios. Certainly for those of us who are operating with customers in the European space, there's already quite stringent regulation around obtaining permissions to use people's data to train models, and that regulation also grants the right to withdraw that permission at any time. So we need to consider the requirement for solutions to be able to understand that there is a database of permissions, and the fact that if anyone withdraws a permission, that potentially invalidates deployed models and triggers a need to retrain and redeploy. So we still have a number of gaps in this document, so I would welcome some contributions from the broader team in any of these areas. Typically what we're looking to do with the technology requirements section is flesh out known requirements. So the bits that we're looking to fill out this document should be phrased in the form of a requirement, and then where we already know about potential solutions, then the narrative section in the final chapter here is where we can discuss what's available at the moment and how how those things might potentially change over time to reflect. So hopefully everyone can see the document okay. You might need to switch out of grid view into speaker view so you can see the full screen view of it. So does anyone have any points that they want to raise in relation to the roadmap work at the moment, or any questions?
Hi, I just wanted to introduce myself and ask a question. My name is Suresh Gururaja. I work with a company in the financial technology space called Kensho. And we're now looking at MLOps as an area to kind of invest in and do better at. And I found this group, just by Googling around, and I was really interested to come in and see what people are talking about. And my question is the following. Is this in the service of kind of developing a platform to do these things, or is this more of a codification of the process that people go through such that you can use that as a template?
So the idea is that the fundamental problem that exists at the moment really is that we have this new discipline of machine learning, which is typically being driven by data science departments.
Yeah.
And there are some massive breakthroughs being made in the machine learning space. But at the same time, a lot of those projects are actually failing to make it to market because the teams involved haven't necessarily had much exposure to the challenges of managing technology assets in production environments and actually building commercial products. So what we're trying to do within the CDF is bridge the gap between the machine learning world, where we've got people with the machine learning skills, and then the conventional software development world, where there's 70 odd years of experience of how to manage technology assets.
Right.
And so the idea of the roadmap is to really spell out for both sides what the requirements are in terms of what people need to be able to do in that space, what the challenges are, and then how we can leverage the best practice that we already have and some of the tools that we've been using for many years to actually close the gap and make it much easier to manage machine learning assets as first-class citizens within a software asset management plan.
Makes a lot of sense.
So the intention of the roadmap really is to just have one place where we really clearly spell out what the challenges are, and then paint a vision for what we might be able to achieve in terms of simplifying and automating and generally improving the capabilities to deliver those individual requirements as as a product pipeline, and then do that in such a way that it's open for anyone to come in and get involved and build products and services around the roadmap, which are intended to address the core problem space.
And one thing, Sarish, I would like to add is that if you are interested in something more on the ground, more concrete implementation, right? So another activity which we are driving in the SIG is essentially, Qflow pipelines and Tecton coming together to address, a large number of these use cases and requirements, right? And they're pretty advanced in terms of, handling a bunch of these requirements which are originating in the MLOps world, right? But definitely, there is a lot more to be done, right? So as the roadmap lays out more things. But yeah, if you're interested in, something which is actually, available at a code level, that's the second activity, right, which we are driving here.
Yeah, the clarification is much appreciated. I'm certainly interested in both sides, just because we are a company of about 100 people or so, within the larger S&P Global umbrella, which is about 20,000 people. So our scale is fairly limited, and I think it's useful to be able to see something like the roadmap to point to issues which people in the broader software community are experiencing that we may not have hit the scale to experience yet. So, from my perspective, the roadmap has already been useful in terms of informing what we're going to need to think about in MLOps, even a little bit down the road. So, I mean, thank you all for putting that together.
Thanks. Which organization do you represent, Suresh?
So it's called Kensho Technologies. It's a wing of S&P Global.
Okay. Thanks, Terry. So is there anything else from your side, Terry?
No, just the usual request for pull requests from anyone who wants to contribute to the document. I wonder if you might be able to give us some update on this week's news story relating to Kubeflow. I understand we've had some enterprising people who've been using the platform to mine Bitcoin.
Yeah, that happened on Azure ML, right? So I think Kubeflow deployments on Azure, and that was, I mean, the point is intentionally, if you are deploying and leaving the end nodes exposed without, securing them with an authentication authorization on an ingress gateway, right? That's probably one of the problems, needing to be exploited, right? So Kubeflow comes in different flavors, right? Where one of the flavors is, you use a combination of Istio and Dex for authentication and authorization, right? And tightening that control. So the deployments which have been exploited or I would say, the freewheeling clusters of Kubeflow. And part of the reason, they became an interesting target is because a lot of the people do more heavy duty, GPU oriented stuff under the covers, right? So the nodes are amenable. Like if somebody has deployed Kubeflow, in all probability, they have certain nodes which have GPUs available, and those are the kind of computing horsepower which these Bitcoin miners need, right? So, but yeah, I mean, there is a discussion on it on the Kubeflow thread as well, right? As well as recommendations. If and more than a recommendation, I think, based on this incident, it's probably a requirement now that, if you're deploying Kubeflow on one of these public cloud endpoints, deploy with the security enabled. Yeah.
And
it's like you said my name and I appeared. Just to be incredibly clear, this was more than a little bit my fault. We had published on the Kubeflow website documentation on how to set up Kubeflow on AKS, the Azure Kubernetes service. In it, we had one of those optional insert boxes that said, hey, if you'd like to open this dashboard to the world, here's the configuration you need to do. Make sure to secure it before you do so, using Istio. And enough people did it, and enough people didn't secure it that we ended up both removing the documentation and issuing an advisory around it. But this is no different than, a couple of years ago, Kubernetes had a dashboard exploit that they used that people ended up mining against. Exact same thing. There was and is nothing about the default Kubeflow install that's insecure. It just, if you don't set a password and you don't do this and you don't do that and you follow these instructions, anyone can use anything.
Yeah, so I think there's probably an interesting learning to come out of this, that we might want to include in the roadmap, because again, this is another example where we can't necessarily rely on the fact that the teams deploying these tools have in-depth security knowledge to understand the implications of some of the things that they're doing when they're deploying. So we should really have a requirement that says that the tooling should expect that it's being deployed, or it's deploying itself in such a way that it's intrinsically secure to
Yeah, I think
best
that's a really
effort.
interesting point. I think it might be interesting to expand beyond even that and really stress that the CD pipeline, I give quite a lot of talks where I talk about the CD pipeline being critical for security, meaning not that it is inherently secure, but at the moment that you discover something is insecure, this is a way to remediate this quickly and reliably, because you have this pre-built pipeline that you can say, okay, I'm going to make this configuration change and push it out, and nothing else changes, which is obviously quite powerful. So yeah, I completely agree, and I think we may be able to go even further than that.
Yeah. Would you be willing to put something into the challenges table to relating to that and
Sure thing. Can you drop a link in the chat here? Where would you?
Yeah, so there's actually a link in the chat already.
I didn't get the history when I joined.
So this is the roadmap
Thank you.
document.
Okay, thank you very much.
So Animesh, did you have anything else that you wanted to cover?
No, I think unless somebody has questions, I mean, just underlining the fact that there is no solid progress with the Qflow pipeline and Tecton working end to end, both from the SDK API as well as UI perspective. Also, the next in the set, what we have integrated is the metadata and the lineage, right? So there is a workflow oriented view, which is go to step A, B, C, D, but then now there is also the concepts of data flow integrated in it, which is essentially track back the lineage and have a DAG of every input and output flowing from those A, B, C, D, as well as trace back from D back to A, right? So all that has been integrated, and I think in probably the next call, right, I will do a deeper dive demo of having this work from end-to-end perspective, right? So yeah, I think a couple of things which we are still hoping the Tecton community as such drives further on as the two big ticket items is the looping support, which I think, and maybe I don't know, Andrea, if you have any insights, it's probably fell through the cracks. I believe Greg started something on it, design doc. There was supposed to be comments, and I don't know where it is. It's probably more than a month. And I think the second thing, condition spec moving to beta, right? These are the two big ticket items in general, right, from the Tecton community, which are missing.
Yeah, so both of them are being worked on. Didn't really fall through the cracks. I mean, there is a design that Greg worked on and is able to make some progress on it. There is a dependency on different feature that is also being developed. So Greg is able to make progress on that, and in parallel, at some point there would be a dependency on the other feature being ready. So we're looking at what is the timeline for that. And but yeah, so they're progressing. For the conditionals, so there was an initial review cycle, and there's going to be the updated version based on all the feedback in the next API working group on Monday. And yeah, hopefully there will be the final revision, then we can start implementing it. But definitely there is a focus on those as well, because we started discussing also GA plans, and those both are well, at least the conditionals are dependency, strict dependency for that. So
when you say GA plans, is the like 1.0 of Tekton or more like on the product side?
1.0 of Tekton, which implies getting a stable API for triggers, which is another of the components for Tekton, and also making sure that the whole API of pipeline is beta.
Okay, and I would definitely, prioritize conditionals as you mentioned, right, as part of that. I mean, more so than the triggers. I mean, in general, right, there is Knative, which exists, right, for triggering and eventing, right? So I don't know if there was an overarching need for introducing triggers in Tekton as well, given that, they're part of the same or similar family, right? I mean, Tekton originated from Knative side, and since Knative addresses pretty richly quite of the aspects around, triggering and eventing. But I think like things like loops and conditionals, right? These are more intrinsic to the pipeline, in terms of the priority as opposed to, an external triggering mechanism. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess from an MLOps point of view, for sure. So, but yeah, they're both important from the Tekton community. So they're kind of different teams working on those, because the trigger teams works on the trigger project, so that they're not competing in terms of resources allocation. So.
Okay, cool, thanks. So Greg is past the design phase. Like, does he have an approval on the design for loops, and is it now more in implementation, or it's still in the design discussion?
No, last time I spoke to him, so it was yesterday or 2 days ago. He said that he's working with it, he's able to make progress. But there is, as what I mentioned, is there is a dependency on a different feature that is being implemented. That's the grid design. So.
Okay. I mean, typically, in the Qflow community, the process is that, design gets signed off and closed, and then, people move to the implementation, right? So there is a definite cutoff from, okay, everybody has approved the document, there is an inline date, by this time, make a decision, and then move to the code, right? So, I mean, I was just looking for if do you put like clear-cut demarcations in the Tekton community that?
Yeah, so we just introduced that. So we just finished introducing what we call TEP, so Tekton Enhancement Proposal process. So the process itself has been approved and finalized now. So all the design that we had in flight will be now moved into TEPs, so that we can get the official sign off on them. It's just a matter of doing the migration into the right document format and so forth, but that doesn't prevent Greg from continuing working on the feature.
Cool, thanks. That's pretty much it from my side. Terry, anyone else has any questions? Else we'll give some time back.
Yeah, or if anyone would like to introduce themselves, feel free to go ahead.
Okay, going once, going twice. I think we are good. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Hey, Animesh, I have a proof of concept of forking a repo and executing MLOps on it. Since you have time, I mean, I guess anyone could come, but I was just thinking of showing you.
Right now, or you want to?
Oh, I mean, if you like, are we over at 10, or does this?
No, we still have 5 minutes. So if you don't want to bring it.
Oh no, yeah, it's too short. We'll just find extra time if anyone else, and if anyone else wants to come here, welcome to.
Or we can, have you hard scheduled for the next one, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's just a mock-up, but it's the idea of how do you encode your parameters for execution in your repo, and then use that so that when you fork, you are able to follow up on that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try and schedule it offline.
And I
Thanks.
think there's just a point on that also, David, right? So, I mean, we did have your name on the metadata side of Qflow, right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to think about, what you do, because currently, that part of the project is orphan in the sense that if we don't have someone, who has a strong interest, the general perception is to archive it, right? But so take a look and see, if there
Have
is.
we even kicked it off?
So there is a metadata repository in Qflow, right? So if you
Oh,
go,
yeah, absolutely.
that's
I mean, candidly speaking, I don't. My interest in the metadata is as we've talked about many times, finding an external organization for everyone to collaborate on relative to metadata, and then having things inside, for example, Kubeflow, subscribe to that metadata. So I kind of have to do both simultaneously.
yeah, and I think the one way to look at it will be, can this one inside the Qflow becomes your bridge now that there is liberty
Yeah.
for you to take it and align it with your external work, right? So I mean, there are a bunch of specs into that project, right? Metadata specs, but also a dashboard to look at the metadata backing database behind the scenes, right?
Absolutely.
gRPC API. So there is quite a bit of good implementation, which if we want to align, for example, with ML spec, right? I mean, that's an opportunity right there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally agree.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thanks. Talk to you guys later. Thank you. Steady.
Bye now.